There was a time above, a time before. There were perfect things, diamond absolutes. Things fall, things on earth. And what falls is fallen.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a special segment of Chicago Corner. Friends, nerds, comic fans, lend me your ears. We come to bury the DCEU, not praise it. The DCEU is dead. Long live the DCEU. I had an opportunity this week to see The Flash, which I have now subtitled The Flush, with my very good friend and comrade in movie crime, Mr. Art Medina. Art, welcome.
Jerry Vasilatos, my dear good friend. How are you today?
I'm good. And we figured since often when we leave these movies, we start talking about our thoughts on the movie. And then after we go on and on and on, we say we should have recorded a podcast because it was very, very interesting analysis and commentary and conversation. And we were both looking forward to The Flash, weren't we, Art?
Well, let's just go ahead and say that we were looking forward to whatever the next DC movie would come out so that we can discuss it. But it was because it had been enticed with the casting of certain actors that was bringing about the nostalgic euphoria that is the childhood that you and I both shared, which was children of the 80s, 1989 Batman, which somehow strike me down if you haven't heard this before, but when the Flash said that they were going to do the Flashpoint storyline, it meant that it had to involve a Batman. And then, because we know what the source material is, we assumed it was going to be a particular Batman that had already been casted. Now, we can go ahead and develop this with the storytelling. Jerry, I don't want to take away from your introduction.
No. Well, that's all. Those are all important points we'll get to. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned we were looking forward to certain casting. I wasn't looking that forward to that certain casting as much as I grew up on serious Michael Keaton Batman. What I was looking forward to was how Warner Brothers and DC could figure out how to use this time travel multiverse setup to be able to leave possibilities for characters whose storylines and through lines I don't think have been completed. Principally, Henry Cavill's Superman, since Zack Snyder's Justice League, who has been done completely dirty by Warner Brothers because of the transition in power at the studio, from the last regime to the new regime to James Gunn. Ben Affleck, who has become my favorite Batman since Christian Bale, as much as I really have a beloved nostalgia factor with Michael Keaton. I feel that Bale and Affleck are more, I guess, faithful iterations of the Batman, Bruce Wayne character than Michael Keaton. I look at Michael Keaton playing Batman even in the old days, and it's like, I don't think Michael Keaton's performance as Bruce Wayne is that literal to what the comic book Bruce Wayne is. But now here, isn't it interesting? We're talking about Batman, and this is a Flash movie because you've got a second banana character as the lead, but all of the eyes were on a secondary, stronger character in Batman, or the influence in the background of Superman, who
Yes.
was out of this movie. And by the way, we're not going to go into spoilers yet, but we will towards the back end of this.
Right.
We were laughingly referring this as Batman Returns again, because that's how
Yes,
it was.
exactly. But that's the thing. You ironically said this was a movie that we were looking forward to. We were looking forward to it because it wasn't because it was a Flash movie. It was because it was going to include, to some degree, Batman. But when they casted Michael Keaton as the Batman that was going to be in the Flash, it suddenly became like, oh wow, we're going to get him back. We're going to actually see and get the continuation of this Batman personification by Michael Keaton.
So that's what you wanted, because I wanted like the loose ends that we could continue to possibly explore what Zack Snyder set up in his universe with all the characters,
Exactly.
not just Batman, because I think Wonder Woman's a great character.
Yes.
Keep in mind, Zack Snyder was principally involved in casting all the performers for these very beloved comic book characters. And I think Henry Cavill, I don't think anybody, there are some weirdos on the internet who don't think that Henry Cavill is a great representation of Superman. And it's like, look, man, Christopher Reeve's Superman cannot exist in the current contemporary dramatic narrative times. That's a tone from another time. We're going to get to tone also. What I loved about Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder's take on Man of Steel was literally the existential crisis of, if an alien actually appeared on Earth, how would the world respond to that? And Man of Steel really, I thought, examined that absolutely perfectly, because the world would not be rallying around him like Richard Donner's Superman. That was a movie of another time. It was great. It was beloved for that time. But I think Zack Snyder was able to kind of like deconstruct superheroes into like, okay, it's kind of silly to like literally pull them off the page the way they look, whether, we saw Adam West's Batman in the 1960s, or, Christopher Reeve played it straight. But it's like, how can we redefine these characters that if they really did appear as mythological real life characters, the idea of the metahumans, how could we play this out, playing off the drama of how real people act, how real people behave, which was completely absent in The Flash, which is what we're going to be talking about here.
Actually, that's actually one of the things that sort of like divides up a lot of these films, because one of the things that I discovered is that you could either make a movie seriously, like Richard Donner did when he did the original Superman the movie, or Christopher Nolan when he did the Dark Knight trilogy. Those were catered to be grounded in realism, and so therefore they became very believable. But then you're going to have a lot of directors and a lot of studios who are going to go in the direction of making the comic book look into
making it goofy, basically.
Right, and it's going to look goofy, and it's going to have weird characters, and it's going to have overacting by a lot of serious actors sometimes.
Dematuring.
It's also going to be very kid friendly, because it's going to be for like a generation or two, and so you don't want to scare the kids too bad. So it's in some respect deprived of the seriousness because it has to be friendly for the kids.
Right, and that's a tonal palette. And let's get into it. Zack Snyder, who was given, permission and duties and responsibilities to build out the DCEU, decided this is the direction I'm going to take.
Yeah,
I have a finite ending with a Justice League 2 or 3, at which point we would have been done with those movies, and DC could have taken it in a different direction, allowing the fans and the audiences to have their emotional through line and resolution with what we saw on screen. So he gets to start the tonal palette, which is serious. Then, the powers at Warner Brothers change. We get goofy shit like Shazam, which I know a lot of people like. But if that's supposed to be part of that DCEU continuity, tonally, it does not fit. Nor did Wonder Woman 84. Nor does The Flash or The Flush, since it's flushing all that away. My main remark when I came out of the film with art was that you've basically got three tonal palettes here. You've got Gothic Burton Batman. You've got revisionist, modernist Zack Snyder Man of Steel. And you've got, forgive me for using the word, and we'll talk about this, retard Justice League humor, which is just pervades the Flash. Ezra Miller's a decent actor. Aside from all of his personal mental health crises that we've seen in the news cycle, he's a good actor, but this character, I don't think Barry Allen, at least this iteration, is a likable character. In the beginning of the movie, Bruce warns him against traveling through time. He does it anyway. Even at the end, when he realizes the mess he's created, without going into spoilers, he still cheats. He tries to put everything back, but cheats one little thing that basically changes the reality he returns to for some weird Planet of the Apes type gotcha ending, which I'm just like, really? Are you serious? So there's been no growth in his character. Anytime he's on screen with himself, it's cringe. I'm squirming, waiting for the other stuff to happen. When Michael Keaton appears and we get the resolution of his iteration of Batman, it's fantastic. But it's the tone from the Tim Burton universe. Then we get Sasha Calle's Supergirl, who's so sorely, I feel underserved, and that I would have loved to see her take on this Supergirl within a Zack Snyder continuation, because she's great. She's great. The stuff when she's on screen is great, but then when we come back to Barry Allen, it's just like, I can't stand this character. I liked him in the Zack Snyder iterations of Justice League because they could play his humor with some seriousness, but here he's a fucking idiot. His double from the past, he's okay. So when we were commenting on this in the theater, I used the R word. Art was like, Jerry, you're using the R word too much. Keep it down. And I asked Art afterwards, I'm like, I didn't mean to offend you. I don't use the word retard as a slam on mentally challenged people. I use that word from our age growing up, using it as like an idiot, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be
very
clear here that I'm a child of the 80s, and I remember using that word a lot, but just to describe stupid people who were just acting stupid, and I don't know how else to describe.
Not the mentally challenged, because it kind of took away. Yeah,
that's the one thing about this movie that I mean really struck me right off the bat as like, oh my god. Now you have to understand, this is what happened. We're watching the movie. The movie has just started. We see the Ezra Miller performance, and I immediately thought of something that I think that if anybody who's much younger than us is not going to catch on this reference, but those who will understand. I was reminded of the performances of the early comedic performances by Jerry Lewis.
That's what you told me afterwards.
Jerry Lewis.
Yep.
If anybody's a fan of Jerry Lewis, we all love him. He's a great artist. You know, he one of the innovators of cinema, in fact. But when he was starting off and he was making movies with Dean Martin, he was such a buffoon. He played the Jerry Lewis character that if anybody were to watch it now, and there is YouTube footage of Jerry Lewis being Jerry Lewis, well, he's acting so retarded that you get offended almost.
That's the rub. That kind of humor does not belong in the tonal palette that was set up. So again, 3 tonal palettes: Gothic Burton Batman,
right,
revisionist modernist Zack Snyder Man of Steel, and retard Justice League, where DC went to Joss Whedon and asked him to undo all of the seriousness of what Zack Snyder did in the phenomenal, ultimately released Zack Snyder's Justice League, because they were rushing to catch up with the humor of Marvel, in which Marvel shifted gears and said, yeah, we can be humorous, but we're going to a serious ending with Infinity War and Endgame, which was direly dark and serious. So it's like in all of DC's efforts to catch up with Marvel, instead of setting things up on their own, or also recognizing Marvel is a more contemporary comic book brand that evolved from the 1960s forward, whereas DC evolved in the 1930s, right? It was more mythological with its superheroes. Marvel was a little bit more pop culture. But DC's been rushed. I mean, I know DC has evolved in comic books throughout the years, but it's like, I think Snyder had his finger on the pulse of like, let's do something serious that represents DC, not copy Marvel, whereas everyone else is like, we got to make the money of Marvel. So Joss Whedon come in and like lighten up Justice League. You know, we know Zach's got to take time off because the tragedy of losing his daughter, but this is our opportunity to completely subvert what he did, and it was a fucking disaster. And then we saw what Snyder ultimately intended with Snyder's Justice League, and it's just like, it was magnificent. And you could watch a cable channel.
Yeah, and let me point out that the Ezra Miller performance in the 4-hour version of the Snyder Cut is so different from the way that the Joss Whedon cut is done, which was the released version, and then so different from what was played now with the Flash, that you really realize that that I think that the actor Ezra Miller lost an ally in Zack Snyder when he left the project. Now, obviously, uh, Miller was going to get his own Flash movie, but he must have been given such reassurances by the studio to continue playing the part, which he said, sure, of course. And it was during the filming that a lot of controversy was happening. And so there were issues with him that obviously affected his performance. And he must have been this kind of actor that the studio was trying to satisfy and trying to protect and trying to keep at bay as much as possible. That if he was ever to go public with any knowledge about the studio or how they affected him or his work ethic, it might not be good for the studio. So they must have let him do whatever he wanted.
I respectfully disagree with that.
If that's the case, and if that affected his performance, and if he decided to play the part of Barry Allen the way he played it in The Flash, that gave us the conclusion that he played it like a Jerry Lewis, retarded, guy, then I'm sorry, but he was miscast.
I disagree.
He was not miscast by Zack Snyder when he was playing the Flash for Zack Snyder. He was miscast as the Flash when he was cast as Ezra Miller.
Well, I don't think Zack Snyder miscast him because Zack Snyder directed him a certain way. The studio did not cater to how Ezra Miller wanted to play this character art. No director does that.
I have to say that at some point, anyone could have easily gone to him and said, look, tone it down. But I have to say, there's a lot of 50-50 in his performances because there are things that he does that just, I say, oh, why is he doing it like that? And then there are some saving graces. He actually delivers with the emotional punch that we need. But the performance really makes it so difficult for me to say that I liked him in the role. I actually say that he played the role wrong, but in the moments where he actually played it right, I wish he had stuck with those notes. And I wish
how many times they reshot this? How many reshoots they went through? Do you know how many reshoots they went through? I would opine that I think the variance in his performance from when he's bearable, were from shoots where they decided we need to inject more humor. Do you know how many test screenings they had for this? At least 4 or 5 that I know of with mass audiences. And this
I've heard there were at least 75 reshoots, but I don't know if that's true because 75 is just a little.
Dude, I don't doubt it. After all of the test screenings and all of the reshoots, this movie had 3 different original endings. And let's go into spoilers because I'm going to put this up on the internet.
Sure.
I'm going to put this on our channel after people have had a chance to see this weekend. But the original.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Before we do that, let me just go ahead and tell you that I'm going to describe my feelings about how I liked it and how I didn't like it, and how I wish the whole project had died with the universe.
Well,
I'm going to call it. It's going to be the blue pill, the red pill, and the black pill. Okay?
Before you go into that, let's also say Art came out of the movie liking it. I came out of it. I'm like, this is instantly forgettable, but I understand the ramifications it's going to have across the DC comic book universe. So, and let me also parse that. Let me also preface that by saying nobody wants to make a bad movie.
Nobody.
Okay, despite the fact I did not like this movie, and you did. I give a lot of credit to the filmmakers because I know the amount of work that goes into this stuff. My criticisms with these movies don't come so much out of the time and investment and the blood, the sweat, the tears, the passion for making the movie. It's in the writing. It's in the characters because ultimately any good movie really relies on how characters behave and how we would imagine they would behave and react in real life, not expositionally tell a story and be moved around like pawns on a chessboard so that things happen, as opposed to how would that character really react to this if they were thinking and they were the real and they were a fleshed out character as we hope we are in real life, making decisions and stuff. So I just wanted to preface, I liked it, you didn't, but go into your presentation here.
No, that's perfectly fine because you see, I think that this movie was actually made as a result of a lot of minds trying to make the right decisions.
Executives.
Yes, exactly. The way that you said that nobody is out there trying to make a bad movie. You're absolutely right. Everybody tries to give a decision or tries to make a choice while making a movie that will make the movie better. And sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen. But I think that the reason why this movie sort of is a result of this one particular issue, it was based on the decision to make money. Every decision that they made for this movie was, will it make us money? Will this make us money? Do you
Keep
think
in
that we
mind,
should go
everybody,
with this
it's what our
direction so they can make us money?
talking about
and
three
you know,
three different regimes. This started during one set of executives, Walter Hamada and Sarnoff. No, it may have even started before them. They may have been the middle ground.
It was all before.
Right, and then you had
different regime. Yes,
Warner
exactly.
Brothers Discovery, and then you've got James Gunn, who was given control, that gave notes that changed the ending again after all the multiple reshoots. So you've got literally 3 executive level administrations at the studio second guessing the creatives to create this Frankenstein patchwork of a movie with all the multiple reshoots that we're talking about right now, which it's trying to please everybody and throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. But it's like, ultimately, I don't know that it worked.
But I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. I have to say that the screenwriter, Christine Hodson, is the name of the Christina Hodson is the name of the screenwriter. There were 3 stories by credits, but it was one screenplay, and that was done by Christina Hodson, and this was based on a comic book called The Flashpoint. Now, she actually took
a bastardization of it.
She took every decision that everybody was making. Everybody was making a bunch of decisions and telling her, put this in there, put this in the script.
Do you know that for a fact?
And she must have said like, okay, you want to put that in? All right, I'll put that in. Okay, I'll make this work. Okay. Oh, you have an idea? Okay, give it to me. All right, I'll try to make it work. Now, guess what happened?
But wait, let me interrupt you. Do you know for a fact that that's how she wrote the screenplay? Have you read anything?
I'm speculating here. I'm speculating here because I want to put credit where credit is due.
Well, we can speculate on some things, but there's a lot of chatter, like through professional like websites and stuff and reporting that says that I'm relating to is along with our speculation.
But what's happened is this: the screenplay. If you were to sit down, really sit down and read the screenplay, the way that it is said and described as a place on the screen, if you were to get all of that transcribed and you were to sit down and read it as a screenplay, you would have to say, wow, there's a lot in the screenplay. There's a lot in the screenplay. There's a lot in the screenplay, but somehow it works. And for whatever reason, that is the faith that has come out of this project that I have watched. I have seriously looked at The Flash and realized that even though I don't like it, but I also hate it,
you did like
screenplay literally delivered what it could with what it had, and it sort of made it work at some level. It's an impossibility almost, but yet The Flash achieved it, and I have to give the credit because it's right there on the screen. The screenplay by Christina Hodson. If she did that, Jerry, she is a master screenwriter, and she must have lit a cigar at the end when it was all over and said, well, if it works, it works. I'll give her that.
A master screenwriter. Yeah, I saw what a master screenwriter she was with Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of Harley Quinn.
And she also wrote the screenplay for Bumblebee, which is a movie I didn't see. But
what
I
is
have to say that between those 2 movies, I'd say that The Flash is actually better than those 2.
Wait, what is Bumblebee? What is Bumblebee?
Oh, it was a Transformers movie.
That explains everything. Okay. You see here, and why do I say that sarcastically? Because these are movies made for children, Art. Okay.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that you liked it, but I also know I'm going to speculate that your appreciation of this had more to do with seeing the return of Michael Keaton than an actual.
You know me so well; it's amazing. I don't know why.
It had nothing to do. I mean, you might think it was the screenplay. Yeah. You might say that, and you might actually think it and believe it. But you were moved by the fact we finally got to see Michael Keaton on screen playing the first serious iteration of Batman that we grew up with, which was great at its time. But even that doesn't stand up that well today, Not because Michael Keaton's not a great actor, but I never really believed Michael Keaton's portrayal as Bruce Wayne. I was just into, we've got the serious Batman with the dark, cool, badass suit and the cool Batmobile and this cool gothic production design. I think Christian Bale was a far better Bruce Wayne emotionally, whereas Ben Affleck was a better Bruce Wayne with the dark, brooding intimidation factor. Again, we're going back to the whole Batman angle to all of this, because the Flash is not a really compelling main heroic character. I think that he, despite the fact that the Justice League is made up of multiple characters, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and here's another thing that was an absolute abomination. Cyborg from Zack Snyder's Justice League was very, very involved in earlier. So when you talk about the screenwriter rewriting the script, writing the script, I want to see the original script, because
I'm pretty sure the original script makes more logical sense than anything else that she probably wrote later. But controversy and decisions by studio executives eventually just led to Cyborg not being in the project.
No, it was politics, Art. It was politics, because Ray Fisher publicly went forward and said, while he was doing the reshoots of Justice League, there was a lot of bad behavior at Warner Brothers. So they decided they were going to punish him. They took his movie away from him. And
there needs to be a textbook written about this process of how it started from point A to point B.
I'm sure
it's amazing how every single story that we know led to the decision of how it affected this movie in the long run. Because Cyborg should have been that part.
I'm sure in years to come, Art. I'm sure in years to come, I'm sure in years to come, as we've seen the making of The Godfather with that great drama on Paramount Plus, what happened behind the scenes. We'll find out the story, because we were cheated of a Cyborg movie. Cyborg and Ray Fisher were literally the heart of Zack Snyder's Justice League in ways that completely usurped my expectations in a good way, subverted my expectations. I didn't know anything about Cyborg's character until I saw how magnificently that character was portrayed in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And Cyborg, Victor's character, is actually a best friend to Barry Allen. So quite naturally, the executives, because Ray Fisher went public with the shit that was going on at Warner Bros., decided to punish him by taking away his movie and writing him out of the script. Also writing out Henry Dean Morgan, who played Bruce Wayne's father in Batman versus Superman. He played Thomas Wayne
by Zack Snyder, and perfectly, may I add.
For those that don't know, the original Flashpoint storyline, I understand you can't literally adapt a comic book. You're going to take some liberties. But the original Flashpoint storyline, which would have been far more emotionally satisfying in the end, had some closure with Bruce Wayne having an opportunity to hear from his dead father, and played by Thomas Wayne, who would have been Henry Dean Morgan, as portrayed in the original Batman versus Superman. Again, Snyder setting things up, setups and payoffs. And it should have been Henry Dean Morgan. And it should have been the emotional resonance of the end of Barry returning from the timeline that Bruce's father became Batman, to leave a message for Bruce, who warned Barry about going through time to begin with, and having some those are like emotionally resonant setups and payoffs. Instead, how are we going to make money? I know, let's bring back Michael Keaton's Batman and eliminate all the setups that Zack Snyder left them that would have paid off more emotionally, to the point, Art, that I say, as much as I wanted to enjoy this and I love comic book movies, I like smart comic book movies. And this was a Frankenstein patchwork of nostalgia grab by throwing in Michael Keaton. For all the years that have gone on where we've heard Man of Steel was too dark, Henry Cavill was too dark, they literally based the set piece of their movie in the end on Zod's arrival to Earth and the darkness of what happened in Man of Steel, with Zod attacking the Earth with Sasha Calle, which was great. I'm like, so how can you deny the what's emotionally satisfying and really magnificent about what was in Man of Steel? Use it here basically to set something up, while you've dismissed it and done Henry Cavill so dirty, and not even giving the guy the benefit of a cameo, especially in regard to the PlayStation 4 graphics we saw with all of the cameos at the end with rubber-faced Christopher Reeve and Nicolas Cage. It was a shit show, I thought.
Well, you see, like I said, this movie has all of those issues that you. Not only did it bother you, it bothered me. There were okay. A quick story. In 1996, my brother and I went to see the Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie, the one that was built up by, I think it was Universal Studios. I'm not sure now, but it was
that was Columbia. Columbia put it out. Columbia Pictures released that. Yeah.
Okay, so and the moment that the Godzilla American version of Godzilla came on screen, I remember that I physically slumped down into my chair. And my brother and I both looked at each other and we shook we shook our heads and we said, this is this is terrible. Well, that's what happened when I saw the rubber faces of these great cameos that could have worked so much better at a different and an emotional punch. There are these moments where you do realize that, oh, this is where it was leading me to. As an audience, you want to suddenly have this rush of emotion that is building up.
That's the
But when
cynical
it's actually
nostalgia
shown to
grab.
you with these like artificial looking, horrible, disfigured versions of something that looks better on a newspaper instead of on the screen now, that's no, you don't do that to me. You shouldn't do that to me. And if you're gonna do it, then do it right, please. You got all that money that you just spent. Can you please spend it on a proper deep fake? What is the choice in the world that actually said, yeah, it looks good that way? No, it does not look good that way. Everybody who saw this movie could easily tell that to a studio executive. But the studio executive is going to be, no, we've got our money's worth, and it'll make us enough money. Don't listen to them anymore. It's up there now. Okay, fine, but you should have done it right the first time, and he didn't.
But to me, Art, that's an example of the cynical, nostalgic-driven cash grab. That was geared towards people our age to bring us into theaters because we thought it was going to happen, which I could care less. I don't need to see. I don't. Okay, sell tickets to the old men who they're also trying to sell toys to. Young kids in the theater, unless they've got parents who've introduced them to those movies. First of all, no kid today of any generation is going to understand the reference to Nicolas Cage fighting the spider as Superman, right? That's fan service. That's cynical fan service that, woo, they did the thing, and it's like it has no bearing or relevance on anything. We didn't need to see Christopher Reeve brought back from the dead in this horrible CGI to make the point. That's what bugs me. That's what bugs me about, but you know what, Art? They're not making their money because I could care less. You know, I see so many YouTubers talking about their concerns with how much money movies make and blah, blah, blah. Now, it's interesting that all of the Zack Snyder naysayers throughout the years have said, well, you know, Batman versus Superman, you know, it didn't break $1 billion, so it was a failure. Do you know how much Batman v Superman made opening weekend worldwide?
I don't know. 63 million.
Batman versus Superman opening weekend worldwide made $420 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what The Flash has made in its opening weekend?
So far, because it's Saturday night and it opened officially on a Friday. And I don't know if they include the ticket sales for Thursday, but if it doesn't, okay. But
do you know how much it's made, Art? I'll tell you.
Let me guess. Let me guess real quick. I say 125.
Half.
Okay, how much?
Half. 60 million.
Oh, wow.
60 million in its opening weekend worldwide, as opposed. So I saw. There's a great tweet I saw from a Snyder site that says, "Who's the minority now, bitches?" With Batman v Superman making $420 million worldwide, The Flash making 60 million. That's why I opened our segment here with like, this is the death of the DC universe. James Gunn and the current regime at Warner Brothers is not going to be able to gaslight anyone anymore. From Suicide Squad to Shazam, whatever, Power of the Gods, whatever, to Wonder Woman 84, everything that's followed what Zack Snyder set up has been a box office disaster. And that speaks to me. I think it just drives home the point that the fact that Snyder's setups made more money with broader audiences, right, that came to see them, not just the fan base that they're catering to now with fan service. Mm-hmm. They're not coming to see The Flash because of what they've heard and because it's so jokey and immature. I think that's my point, in that the executive should have allowed the creatives, even with Andy Muschietti here, right, instead of all these multiple reshoots, I say this a million times. I don't tell a lawyer or a businessman how to do their job because I don't know how to do it. I'm a creative. And when business people or other people think they know how to do my job as a creative, I resent it because they don't have the insight that I do. They're just looking at how they're going to make money at the expense of betraying characters, betraying writing that would make a film good and elevate it to like bringing more people in and making money at the box office. I think that's inherently what the problem is that everybody avoids right now, is the reason that the current DC movies are not making a lot of money is because they've infantilized them to the point where your broader audiences, I mean, yeah, there's going to be audiences that enjoy the silly humor that don't have an investment in like the broader dramatic stake of comic book mythology, as I look at it. But I think that this is I can't stand James Gunn. The fact that they gave him the studio and he set up the end of this movie to subvert and prevent any return. And look, Art, we even saw it in the credits. Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck are not credited. Now, do you know how much SAG will fight on behalf of their actors to make sure they get their credit? That was a decision. Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck, those were not cameos. They were on, well, at least Ben Affleck was on screen for a substantial amount of time. I think, from what I've read about Ben Affleck's experience from reshoots on Justice League and how they pulled the Batman from underneath him, he's just him and Michael Keaton, they took their paychecks, finished up their services, the characters, and just walked away. And I think that this does not bode well for the future of the DC universe. That is now, James Gunn has said, the start of the DCEU is Blue Beetle. I'm familiar with Blue Beetle. I don't know a lot about Blue Beetle, but the fact that he feels that that's like the kickstart to his new vision of what the DC comic book universe should be, leading up to his iteration of Superman, it's where I'm sure we're going to be getting like, the scatological humor that was prevalent in Suicide Squad or Peacemaker on HBO. It's like, dude, that's not what James Gunn's iteration and the current regime's iteration of how they want to take DC forward. Again, to keep it in line with what Marvel is, it's just a monumental misfire. And I'm going to watch Man of Steel tonight to just like cleanse my palate of what we saw on Thursday and remind myself of like how good DC storytelling could be.
Well, the thing with James Gunn is that I think James Gunn is actually going to achieve something that is right now an impossibility. And that is that he's actually going to carefully develop each of the DC characters that he is going to work on. Now, I don't know how he's going to make it work, but he has made, to some extent, anything that he touches work to the level of degree that it satisfies a lot of fans. He has done the Peacemaker, I think a Peacemaker or
I hated that show. And how they brought Aquaman and Barry back in the end.
It was a stupid old show, and it was based off of one of the characters that he shot when he made a movie called Suicide Squad. A C-list character. Right, exactly. But as a show, it actually worked.
You like it
in that ultraviolet offensive language level that worked with a lot of fans. So to some degree, if he decides that he's going to take a character from the DC universe and make it like the show Peacekeeper, maybe he'll make it work. Maybe he won't make it work. Whatever the case is, he's making now the decisions. He is now a studio head. And I don't know about you, but if I was a studio head, even I would understand that controversy will sell tickets. Casting will sell tickets.
Not at the expense of all the money they're losing, Art.
Storyline from a particular book, from a particular comic book, that sells tickets. Getting an actor to return to the part that he did 30 years ago, that's going to sell tickets. So trust me, either James Gunn is going to go in the direction of how it's been going with DC, or he's going to take it in a whole new direction. And I'm a little bit with he will take it to a direction that will satisfy a lot of fans. Not maybe you, maybe not me, but there will be a movie or two that he has developed that you will say, wow, that is actually a good movie. May not happen, Jerry, but let's give him the chance to try it. Even though, let's face it, even I think it's going to be an impossibility.
It's not reflected in the box office on any of the films that James Gunn has been involved in with the DC universe since he did Suicide Squad and since he gave notes.
He obviously had so much success with Marvel that
but Guardians
of DC.
But dude, Guardians of
like this. Look, by the way, did you happen to catch the movie? What was it called? The Guardians of the Galaxy, the last movie he directed.
No, I started watching it. And I couldn't. I started watching it and I didn't care. Those characters, that humor belongs in that universe. Okay,
sure, exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's what he does. James Gunn's imprint is going to be on everything at DC, and his imprint does not fit what DC is, and that's my point. And it's not reflected in the current box office or in box office going forward, because people are now losing faith in basically what I'm going to call the infantilization of DC comic book characters, what we saw here and what we're going to see going forward.
Yes, but James Gunn did a great job with Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. It was an emotional roller coaster. It was a very, very well-made movie, to the point where it peppered in all of the historical references of an older generation like ourselves. I have to give him credit and say that if he is able to do that, then I have to say that there's hope for what he's going to do with the DC universe. I will give him a chance, but I think it's still an impossibility, like I just said. Also, I will have to say this, okay? The product that The Flash has become, because of choices by the studio executives and by casting and by different people that were in the project and then left the project and then returned to the project, all of that is just something that happens with every movie, to the point where if it doesn't happen with this movie, it's going to happen with another movie. And it's just fan service, almost, to the point where I'm more interested in the development of this movie than I am about the movie itself. I'm more fascinated by all of the bullshit that led to the movie being made. I think that's a more fascinating story almost. But it's not going to happen like that. It's going to happen the way it's just happened. We went to the movies, we saw what we saw on screen, and we either liked it or we didn't.
Well, the trades are kind of already shedding some light on that. Let me pull up Twitter here.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that I've seen and I've shared on my Twitter feed. This came from, let's see, at Sil Abdul. Plenty of hard feelings towards WBD and DC Studios right now out there. Ultimately, this falls on Zaslav. Though he did inherit a shit company, he somehow fumbled this transition to DC Studios while effectively hurting the DC brand. DeLuca, Abdi had the right idea, but were overruled. Let me talk about what DeLuca and Abdi presented that was apparently rebuffed when Gunn got into the captain seat. So basically, DeLuca and Abdi tried to fix the mess of the DCEU. They brought Cavill and Affleck back to cameo in the 2023 slate to set up future movies for them. And this is about that abandoned alternate ending to The Flash. But Gunn was hired and wanted his own Superman, so he fired Cavill and removed the cameos from Flash, then lied about it. And he did. Okay, they told Henry Cavill he was back when he went and did that cameo at the end of Black Adam.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill believed he was back. And they basically used Henry Cavill to get people to go see Black Adam because he was showing up in the end. And then Gunn pulled the rug out from under him. No, I'm going to do my take on Superman. Now, and here's what comes. I believe this may be from Variety, this quote. Then came another lightning strike. In November, Zaslav announced that filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran were to run DC Studios, overseeing all DC film and television efforts. And suddenly and certainly, not unexpectedly, they had their own plans, pulling the rug out from under what had already been set up. Knowing they were resetting the DC universe under their own vision, Gunn and Safran saw that having Cavill and Gadot in the new ending was potentially promising something their plans were not going to deliver. Okay, well, why couldn't you just complete that before you decide to reboot and go in your own direction? That's my problem, Art. They never allow something to finish. They just cut it off, or in this case, I guess they did kind of end it by preventing anything from resolving itself, because James Gunn wants to be known as the new Richard Donner with his take on Superman. Is how I look at it. One of the first actions the duo took was to scrap. Hold on. One of the first actions the duo took was to scrap the Cavill Superman film, and they parted ways with Jenkins, effectively killing the third Wonder Woman installment. I'm sorry, that is creative malpractice, malfeasance, and malpractice, and it's going to damage the brand of the DC movie universe going forward. And that's what I'm talking to with the multiple regimes and why I don't like James Gunn. If James Gunn had any respect for his fellow creatives, he would let them finish their stories and take it in a new direction. The reason the box office is so low right now, Art, nobody's really going to see this, and the numbers that people went out to go see Batman versus Superman, is because they've heard of all this bullshit behind the scenes. A lot of people have heard about all of the second-guessing the creatives or the things that were set up that would have made more sense storytelling, as opposed to like, let's do all these reshoots and Marvelize it with more goofy Barry Allen, that doesn't fit at all against the serious dark tone of gothic Michael Keaton Batman. And again, the Man of Steel tone of the Supergirl that Sasha Calle played in the film. So, a lot of the trades are kind of already, and you know who they're blaming, Art? Do you know who Warner Brothers is blaming for this right now, this low opening? Zack Snyder. Oh, the fact that they had to have Ezra Miller and do all these things with the Flash is on Snyder because he cast Ezra Miller and he set things up. It's like, no, if you followed through on things properly instead of like Frankenstein patchwork all this, to my dissatisfaction, I know not yours, but this is what I'm talking about as a creative, examining all this and wanting to go enjoy a movie.
Well, personally, I think every filmmaker in the industry has got to see like documentaries about how movies used to be made, about how they actually had to get actors and actresses into the open and shoot them with like cameras that used chemical film instead of digital, and in a studio. Because I think that the reason why they are able to do so many reshoots is because they are not really doing any real work that will service the story. They're just making the work that will service a studio executive who says he didn't like the opening of that sequence, or someone who says, I think we should change the end to that. And that's just, you're right, a waste of a lot of resources, and also a loss in the faith of what has been written. Excuse me. And so, not everyone is going to actually make the right decisions and the right choices on a project, but they shouldn't make those choices to hurt the project. I think that the Flash is a movie that is actually hurt by a lot of decisions, but those decisions were made with the best intentions. And like I said,
more to make money and good intent. But let me just interrupt you for one thing. No, they weren't. The only good intentions the studio wanted to serve was making more money, as opposed to, why don't we actually let the creatives tell a decent story and let it stand for itself, and the people will come.
Like I said, I'm going to give credit where credit is due, because look, every actor in this movie had to act with the resonance of what the script told them to say it like. And, I know that every actor that was in the original Star Wars knew that this was not going to work as a movie because of the dialogue that they were saying.
No,
but
they didn't.
Surprisingly, that worked.
That's not true.
No, wait, look, I'm trying to make a point here. So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about all the actors not thinking Star Wars was going to work because of the dialogue, although what I wanted to interject was Carrie Fisher had absolute faith. So did Mark Hamill in the original Star Wars.
But they admit that they were reading clunky dialogue and they weren't really told exactly how to say the dialogue. So the faster, more intense direction by George Lucas was a gamble by everybody. But what saved the movie is the editing and the performances by a lot of actors who were just starting out in the business. So here's a movie, The Flash, that there's a lot of seasoned actors in there. And a lot of them obviously must have read whatever they were given by lines of dialogue that day. And whatever they must have tried to make it work. And you can either see it in some scenes or you don't see it in other scenes. But every single actor that was in this movie gave it their best shot, even though they weren't given a resource of something that they could put their faith into. But in the end, it's all a gamble. Every studio executive is going to put so much money into a movie and hope that it becomes a hit. And so every actor who gets a job in a movie is going to hope that the script and the lines that they read is going to actually be something great. But it doesn't always work out that way. The Flash is a mixture of all of that. And it was obviously done because of the fact that, everybody was just trying it out, even though they didn't know how it was going to work out.
Art, I have no issue with the actors' performances in this film. In fact, I've gone beyond to credit them with their performances are sound. It comes to the writing and the execution of the concept.
And they did their best.
They did. Aside from the fact that the storytelling, the script writing, and the execution, and the script was so poorly executed because of all of the interference behind the scenes with multiple executives. I mean, that's I think the heart of my argument with this film is too many cooks in the kitchen, subverting something that could have been really great, along with the great performances of all the actors in the film. I mean, I give it credit for that.
and it was right away it struck me negatively when Ezra Miller started to play the part of Barry Allen. And then
Terry
the
Lewis?
opening sequence with like a baby shower. I'll let everybody see the movie.
Oh
You
my
know what it
God.
is.
A baby in the
Uh,
microwave.
yeah, and at some point I say to myself, "Oh wow, why?" There's a sequence where I don't want to describe a lot,
No,
but
we're into spoilers now. Go
the
ahead.
interaction between Wonder Woman, Batman, and Barry Allen on that bridge was so quick, and you could have actually like taken
Cringe.
just a little bit of time to actually develop the friendship between those three. But instead, it was like, nice suit, and then she's off and she's gone, and that was the last time you saw Wonder Woman for the rest of your life in that
And
personification by
and
Gal
it's a
Gadot.
and it's theoretically
It's
the
a
last
waste.
time we're going to see Ben Affleck. And then, first of all, it was a cringe scene. And to the costume department, how do you go from the Batman versus Superman suit to the Michelin tire man on the bridge with again, I keep relating to Frankenstein patchwork of a suit that Ben Affleck was wearing with the rubber rim. It just looked ridiculous. And then, so here's another interesting point that was on Twitter I wanted to share. Have you heard that Machete has been now awarded? He's failed upward to directing Brave and the Bold. The guy who's
Oh yeah.
directing the new Batman just did the Batman should just stop poverty instead of being Batman joke in a DC movie, which is what happened on the bridge when he's like, has the lasso of truth around his head. He's like, well, I should just be like spending my money to end poverty instead of fighting crime. It's like, yeah, this is the director's now being given the new Batman film under Gunn because, look, man, we see it all the time. People failing upward because
Sure.
of the connections and because of the nepotism and everything else.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that scene or it was added in there, that interaction was added in there in order to satisfy, whatever controversy was going to be picked up by who so and so, by a studio executive who wanted to appear woke and wanted to make this movie appear woke. Who knows? But at the
Well,
same
there's
time,
your
we have to understand
screenwriter,
that,
Art.
when it comes to the Ben Affleck Batman, the way that he was geared up, that was designed to sell some toys, no doubt
Of
about it.
course
I
it
mean,
was.
that motorcycle. I gotta say that the motorcycle that he rides in that movie, it's a toy. It's a toy. It's ready to
Dude,
come
and
out.
those are what you referred to as good intentions. They're not good
Yeah.
intentions. It's a cynical cash
Dude,
money.
yeah, but you know what? There's a toy company out there who's churning them all out, and they're making a profit, and it's all because somebody made a decision
Well,
to make the Batman suit look like that.
okay. As a 1/6 figure collector of hot toys, I've seen the chatter online, and nobody's buying this Ben Affleck 1/6
I
figure.
actually,
Everybody
yeah,
agrees it was shit.
my brother's a collector as well, and I asked him, "Are you gonna, if they have like a Batman like that, do you want to get it?" And he goes, "No, not really. It really does look yeah, it looks ridiculous. It doesn't look like Batman
It's
at all."
poorly conceived and designed. So sources just confirmed the Flash is very likely headed for a 3-day opening weekend number lower than 60 million. 55
No,
$59
it's kind
million
of
dollars. Hold on. Yeah, I'll
really.
share it with you. Yeah, I'm sharing it with you. Look,
I,
3-day opening weekend number lower than 60 million, 55 million to the $59 million new range. Comparatively, Black Adam made 67 million a year ago. Shazam 1 made 63 million 4 years ago, adjusted for inflation.
you know what? It's kind of like the movie. I was both shocked and amazed by it. I think that I'm shocked by those numbers. There should be more, but yeah, you're right. I think you're
I'm
absolutely
not
right now. This is the end of the DC universe.
I'm
In
not
this
surprised.
personification.
I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. Another great tweet, and this speaks to the heart of all of this mismanagement and second guessing of the creatives and rewriting the script. Oh, and you mentioned the woke factor on the bridge about how Bruce Wayne should spend his money to like end crime, just spend all of his money instead of fighting it. A lot of people would argue that the Birds of Prey Harley Quinn movie was a very woke movie from the same
Oh yeah.
screenwriter. So there
Oh,
you see that, and we'll say, all right. So here's from unbiased Snyder fan on Twitter. This is a direct quote from Zack Snyder, which is why Zack Snyder's shit works. They, meaning executives, think maybe I'll make a sequel, so let's not put this really cool idea in the movie. Let's save it for later. Never do that. Shoot your bullets. Trying to make more billets, that's a better problem to have than, oh, no one will ever see this cool idea that I have, which speaks to why he brought Doomsday into the Batman versus Superman storyline, which I thought worked in that movie very well. I think Zack Snyder was able to take pieces from multiple source materials in DC with Doomsday, Batman fighting Superman from like the old, which reflected the old Frank Miller Dark Knight graphic novels, introducing Wonder Woman so they could set up her movie. Zack Snyder's a master filmmaker. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, I think you agree with that too, but there are a lot of, comic book fans who think that, he's too dark. Hey man, there was a lot of humor in Zack Snyder's Justice League that was appropriate. That it wasn't forced down your throat in cringe ways that we saw in Barry Allen's performance in The Flash. Let me look at some other comments that I found on Twitter that I wanted to share.
I'm going to ask you a trivia question that I found online. All right. So who was the first actor ever to portray the Flash?
In movies? Or television and movies? John Wesley Shipp in the CBS series, wasn't it?
No, not that one. No.
You're right. We're going to go really far back.
He wasn't the first actor.
Okay, I know. And I don't know the actor's name, but it probably had to do with that really bad 70s roast show, the Justice League of Superheroes, where Adam West showed up, where they were all
talking about the Legends of the Superheroes from 1979. That was produced by
TV special. Yeah,
the actor in question, who was the first actor to play the Flash
live action,
was Rod Haase, H-A-S-E.
Who?
Oh, sorry, H-A-A-S-E.
Why didn't they bring him? Why didn't they bring him back for a cameo at the end of The Flash? He would have been better suited.
Maybe he's somewhere there that we didn't notice, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. But maybe they gave him a ticket to the premiere. I would, if I was a studio executive, I'd throw him a bone. But
I doubt that. I doubt they brought him to the premiere. Another comment off of Twitter. I wonder what the fan response to The Flash would be like as it existed in October, the previous edit of the film, where it ended with Keaton, Caillé, Cavill, and Gadot primed for future adventures and the promise of Affleck coming back for a Crisis movie. So the original ending that was shot was that when Barry goes to the courthouse, okay, Keaton is there, Sasha Calle, Supergirl, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and Henry Cavill, because of how he undid the multiverse. And he gets a message from Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne in the past, like a transmission, much reflecting how he reached out to Bruce Wayne in Batman versus Superman, saying Lois is the key to all of this, with what Zack Snyder was going to follow through, so that at least there was a promise of, even if Affleck's Bruce Wayne was erased, he existed somewhere so that he could come back. Look, Art, in this movie, spoilers, everybody, everything Barry Allen does, it destroys Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. It eliminates Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. They kill Michael Keaton's Batman. They kill Sasha Calle's Supergirl. And all we're left with is George Clooney showing up as Bruce Wayne outside the courthouse, and drunk Jason Momoa as Aquaman falling piss drunk into a dirty puddle in the street, completely subverting like everything that was like, do you know how much they had to do to like basically raise Aquaman to a more A-lister character? And they did it because Jason Momoa's got a very imposing presence. Zack Snyder's Justice League, what they did with the Aquaman movie was great, right? And now he's just like piss drunk Arthur falling face first into a dirty puddle in the street. And it's like, no, this shit isn't funny. You've like subverting expectations this way to like get really cringe jokes does not serve the characters or the story and stuff going forward. That's my end on it. Oh, here's another one. Oh, so you know that Ben Affleck came back and did reshoots for Aquaman. Well, count on it. They're probably replacing
Aquaman 2 movie?
Well, yeah, Ben Affleck did reshoots for Aquaman 2, and this guy opines they're probably replacing the scene with Clooney. I'm certain of it, and I wouldn't doubt it either. Affleck came back to do reshoots on Aquaman for the ending that would have dovetailed with the original alternate ending of The Flash. It's like that's going to be gone, unfortunately. Count on it.
I don't know if any of the things that we've ever watched on screen are going to remain as they are, even if they were canon. I mean, look, okay, so it was a surprise that George Clooney shows up at the conclusion of The Flash. But yeah, when I saw that, I just saw it as publicity, as a stunt casting.
It's stunt. And here's to speak to that. Whose genius idea was it to replace our generation's Batman, Ben Affleck, erase him from the timeline with the worst Batman of all time, George Clooney, for a quick laugh? Look, I think Clooney could have been a great Bruce Wayne with a better script. And again, back then, Joel Schumacher was given a mandate with Batman and Robin to make a toy movie. There exists a cut of Batman Forever that's literally called the Schumacher cut that I believe one of your idols, Kevin Smith, has seen, where it's a more serious take on Batman Forever. And when I say your idol, I like Kevin Smith. I like old Kevin Smith. I know he's had a lot of challenges in his life with mental health and his heart attack. He just doesn't seem to have the edge that I saw him have in the past. But I respect his opinion. I think it's really cool. He came forward and said he's seen what I think is a 3 or 4 hour cut of Joel Schumacher's original vision for Batman Forever, which was subverted by the studios. This has been going on forever, unfortunately.
Well, at the same time, you have to consider the fact that most of the movies that are actually released, they're done in order to like get everybody who was a fan of one thing or the other to sort of like, because there are fans out there of the George Clooney Batman. Grandma maybe was a fan of the George Clooney Batman. Who knows?
Because it was like the old Adam West show,
right? And suddenly, if there's a kid who goes home after seeing the Flash and tells their mom and dad, "Hey, you know that at the end George Clooney shows up," they're like, "Oh, let's take Grandma to see this movie because she like." And there you go.
Not serving the story; it's serving the ticket sales.
But like I said, it's stunt casting for the sake of getting someone who's a fan to show up just for that one scene. It works. It has to work that way.
So, Art, I want to bring your attention to this tweet. Check out this bullshit. What it's seriously. Joe Costello reports, and there it is. They're about to blame Snyder for the failure of The Flash because of this headline that came from, I guess, a website called, I don't know what website it came from. They say this as if Snyder directed The Flash. The Flash closes the book on Zack Snyder's DC superhero experiment. No, it doesn't. If anything, it's subverted and basically derailed it. This is why they want everyone to agree that The Flash is canon to Zack Snyder's Justice League when the fucking movie couldn't even use actual footage from the Snyder Cut and CGI'd Clark after being resurrected.
Yeah, but that's because there's a lot of and they don't know who directed what and what the director does or what a producer does for that matter. They really don't care as much as
Dude, they know.
We do. Well, let's
no,
face
they're
it,
trying to throw Zack. They're trying to throw Zack.
You and I both know that Irvin Kershner directed Empire Strikes Back, but to this day, people who don't really know think that George Lucas directed Empire Strikes Back. It's just the way that it's commonly been told out there, and so nobody really does a deep dive study. So honestly, when they want to blame Zack Snyder, I know it's unfair, but that's because that's the only name that sticks to every controversy. Because let's face it, he put together a good team. It was the team that was destroyed after he left that everybody sees scattered out there. But they're still going to think of his name because he's the one that put them together. It's kind of like how Michael Jordan, I mean, think about it. They still think of him as being a member of the Bulls. Well, yeah, he was, but that was 20 years ago. But they still think of him as playing basketball with the Bulls.
That's the Flash's $300 million CGI budget.
You know, did you ever see the movie The Scorpion? No. It was
the Scorpion
Mummy
King.
2. Yeah, the Mummy 2.
That's what it looks like.
It had a terrible CGI looking rock, and it was the very first CGI generated face. Well, that movie was, I think, 30 years ago. Don't you think that it could have been made better since then? And yeah, it is. It can be made better, but it was done horribly on purpose. I don't understand why. You wasted all that money. Why didn't you waste more money to make it look better? I don't get it.
Look, $300 million. They had 4 or 5 years to finish this movie because of the pandemic. It's been in production. Another great tweet. I love going to Twitter and social media reactions. Warner Brothers making awful movies that look awful is a stylistic choice that nobody wants to see rather than just making Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 to please all the fans. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. Oh my God, the pain.
May I go ahead and tell you what I think was the saving grace for me with this movie?
Is there
I
one?
mean, yeah, there is one. And all right, so as you mentioned, there was going to be this, and there is an ending to the book Flashpoint. Like you mentioned, Thomas Wayne writes a letter to his son Bruce Wayne,
Right.
who has survived in an alternate universe that the Flash returns to, and he delivers the letter to Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne is in this Batman uniform, sits down, starts to read the letter, and he takes off his cowl, and he reads the letter, he starts to cry. He turns to Barry and he says, Barry, you're a hell of a messenger. Thank you. And that was seriously, for me, when I read that, I said, like, wow, I don't think I've ever actually heard or remember Batman sincerely thanking a friend.
Bruce
And
Wayne.
you see, I was waiting for that emotional moment for this movie. I thought that would be a perfect ending. If they do that ending for this movie, it would be perfect. It didn't happen. They didn't do it. Now, Jerry, what they did instead was that they had Barry Allen speak and spend one single moment at a supermarket with her, and he actually says, Can I hug you? And they embrace, and he's crying, and he stops time just so that he can look at her and say, This is the last time I'm going to see my mom. Now, I lost my mom a year ago,
I
And you
was thinking
understand.
about that, Art. I was thinking
Yeah.
about how this probably spoke more to you having lost your mom, and
My
I
brother was
I
sitting right
respect.
next to me.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
we were watching the movie together, and my brother came with us to see the movie.
yeah.
And my brother and I, we don't share moments like that where we are feeling the exact same thing. It does happen a lot, especially when it just strikes it, and we don't talk about it once it's happened. So this is what happened. The scene comes on. My brother and I are right there, and I'm getting all of the emotions. And I suddenly realize, wow, that is better than what I expected. And that's why I have to give credit to Christina Hodson, the screenwriter, because if she actually fought, did she fight for this scene? Maybe the director fought for the scene. Maybe Ezra Miller fought for the scene. Maybe an studio executive fought for that scene. Who knows who made the decision to put that moment in this film? But it was a perfect moment. Not only was it a perfect moment, it was one of those things where out of every single comic book movie I've seen, that one spoke to me. Yes, because of mom being the subject, but also because I understood. If a screenwriter shows me something and tells me, hey, I understand too, then they've won me over. Now, just that scene alone, I will tell anybody, yeah, go see The Flash. Because we all have a mom.
Yeah, that
And
moment worked for me.
yeah, I got to tell you, yeah, out of everything that the movie could surprise me with, it surprised me not only with how bad it is, but also how good it could have been and how good it got me when it needed to get me. And that includes Michael Keaton as Batman. I loved him in every single frame that he was in this movie. Even though he wasn't given much to do
Yeah, he was.
as Bruce Wayne or as Batman, he still delivered as Batman. And holy cow, I was very, very happy. I loved seeing that old friend again after 30 years.
And that's what they were depending on. And to its
So
credit, that
much
part
of it.
that part made watching this movie bearable to me.
Yeah, I did. It really did. I'm sorry, but children of the 80s, dude, we rule the world. We might as well rule the emotional
Mm.
world too.
I've learned to like let go of the past and embrace change, which is why I love the Zack Snyder direction.
Yeah.
Here's another tweet from unbiased Snyder fan. I'm an unabashed Snyder fan. Shazam flops by Zach Levy. Not an expensive movie, little noise. flush flops. Huge drama will play out in the trades. Warner Brothers will throw everything on Ezra Miller. Aquaman, upcoming Aquaman 2 flops. Huge drama will play out in the trades. Warner Brothers will throw everything on Amber Heard. Indeed, big. Home of DCU. 2023 will be the biggest year for DC since its creation. I don't think so.
It's a Viking death. It's a Viking death.
It's a Viking
I'm pretty sure that a phoenix will rise out of the ashes too. And you know what? We'll talk about it when we see what gets delivered. We will sit down, order a pizza, and discuss it. You know,
dude, I'm not. I want to thank you for buying me the ticket for this movie, so I didn't spend money on a ticket because I'm honestly, Art, I'm cashed out. I'm checked out from the DCEU from here on out. I really am. After this, I'm not interested. I don't care. And remember, everybody, this is James Gunn's favorite superhero film of 2023. Yeah, the end scene with Barry losing his. I was again cringe. His tooth falls out. Then we got spoilers, everybody. George Clooney. There's Michael Keaton's demise. There's the shitty Batman suit that looks like a bad Halloween costume. The shitty CGI down in the lower corner. Look, again, all the performances from all of these actors was fun. And even George Clooney, right? I like George Clooney. I always insisted back in the day before I saw Batman versus Superman, I was excited to see George Clooney as Bruce Wayne because I thought, much like Affleck, he kind of physically fit what I envisioned Bruce Wayne to be like. And Christian Bale surprised me. I'm like, yeah, I love this iteration of Bruce Wayne. They're good actors. They're great performers. But again, to me, the problem is in the writing. So, yes. And if this is what James Gunn considers his favorite superhero film, and that reflects the future of DC art, that's why I'm finally checked out once and for all.
And you know what? I'm pretty sure that you have every justification in the universe to do that. And I will still give it a chance, mainly because I love seeing whatever they try out. I especially like it when they really try and give it a serious try. When I actually see some passion and some development in what I see on screen, which is why the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy was such a revelation almost. It was like as if someone like Quentin Tarantino, who came and changed cinema with Pulp Fiction in 1994, Christopher Nolan did that with Batman Begins. But not even with Batman Begins, he did it with The Dark Knight. I don't know why, but The Dark Knight was such a asteroid strike that it made everybody say, well, then this movie should be like The Dark Knight because it's more serious than The Dark Knight. And, somebody took that character instead to a different direction. And you say, oh, wow, it should have been darker instead of lighter. It should have been more my generation than the new generation. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. We're always going to get the difference of creativity that I'm just going to sit back and watch. I'm just going to say, let's see what you can give me because you know what? I'm enjoying the show.
Well, we've got Christopher Nolan to thank for the, reimagining of how superhero movies can be taken seriously, for the reinvention of superhero movies. And, Christopher Nolan also references Richard Donner because Richard Donner took Superman seriously. It wasn't a campy thing like the Adam West Batman of the 1960s. I think Richard Donner used the word verisimilitude, which is like as silly as things are, if you take it seriously and present it with authenticity and with heart and with conviction, it can work. And that's what we have Christopher Nolan to thank for Iron Man because it was Batman Begins that got Marvel to look at Iron Man and treat all that seriously and bring us to the present day. And all of that has now been subverted. I hear Warner Brothers is now trying to court Christopher Nolan to come back to the studio after, keep in mind, Christopher Nolan was an executive producer of Man of Steel. There was one point where they were thinking about coexisting the Man of Steel continuity with the Batman Begins Dark Knight continuity. But, Nolan's like, well, let's keep it as a separate thing because my Bruce Wayne exists in a realistic world that you and I live in, which is fine. And then they brought in Ben Affleck and stuff. But Warner Brothers, again, absolute malpractice in the way that they've treated Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan. And I think that as we see the DCEU fall from here on forward, that was their big miscalculation. That was Warner Brothers shooting themselves in the dick, as far as I'm concerned. I have a video to share. I mean, I think we've kind of talked this to death. I mean, I love talking movies with Art, which is why I said, you know what? I've always talked about doing a cinema segment on Chicago Corner, and here's our opportunity because our big passion is movies. Before I leave this funny clip that I want to share as we end our program here, is there anything you want to add also, Art?
No, but I mean, if I could just go ahead and say that if, you know, I hope people go to the movies. I hope they don't just stay home and watch it on television or watch movies on television. I want them to actually go to the movie theaters. And, you know, there's not that many. I mean, look, when I was a kid, not that many movies were coming out that were, you know, blockbuster movies until Star Wars came along and Close Encounters, and then, you know, in 1982 with like the blockbuster summer where The Thing and Star Trek 2 and Tron came out. That was the best summer in the universe. But yet you have to understand that we all went to the movies. But, you know, now everybody really wants to stay home. And I kind of feel like the world would be a little bit better if we all just went to the movies and enjoyed something at the same time. Because I hate to say this, but during the movie, there was some applauding. There were some moments where people were very happy to see what was going on screen. And I missed that. I missed that a lot. I think that, you know, if you want to go see a movie, go see The Flash, because something is going to strike you weird, terrible, but good about the movie. You're not going to love it. You maybe are not going to even like it. Who knows? But the point is that go to the movies and give yourself a chance. Give a movie a chance to win you over. Because somehow this movie did win me over. Even though at the end, I know that I'm not going to think of it the way that I think of other films. Yeah.
Well, movies are a shared experience, and I did appreciate the moments in the film where there was some applause. Pretty much when Michael Keaton came on screen, right? Or Sasha Calle's Supergirl. So, and as we talk about our love for the movies, I want to reference a meme that a friend sent to me, Scott Holmgren. I don't know if he's going to see this, but I'll share this. And it is kind of relevant to our love of the films and you know, returning to those characters that we feel like we know.
Oh yeah,
it's 1980. Can I read it in Dr. Manhattan's voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. It's 1989. Indiana Jones and Batman are in theaters. It's 2008. Indiana Jones and Batman are in theaters. It's 2023. Indiana Jones and Batman are in theaters. I'm bracing myself for Dial of Destiny because you know what an Indiana Jones fan I am, and perhaps we'll come back.
Yeah, let's come back to that particular one, right?
In a future episode of what should we call the Chicago Corner at the movies?
No, but you know what? Let's go ahead and call it this because it's actually going to make people click on the thumbnail. Okay, let's go ahead and call it Chicago Corner. Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future.
That's too long a title, Art. I can put hashtags in there. I can put hashtags Eric Stoltz and Back to the Future along. Look, the reason it's not going to hurt us that we're like recording a review to The Flash to share it because everybody's like looking at reviews and conversation about The Flash this weekend. But it's also our passion. We love comic book movies. We love cinema. All right, so I'm going to leave our audience with. I don't know if everybody in our audience has seen this who loves movies, but this was post Batman v Superman. This is a deleted scene. Deleted scene.
Justice League?
Deleted scene from Batman v Superman, Art.
Oh, I see.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Why wasn't this scene in the movie?
Mr. Wayne. Clark Kent, Daily Planet. What's your position on the Bat Vigilante in Gotham? This Batman thinks he's above the law.
You're the new guy in town, is that right?
You could say that.
We do things a little differently in Gotham.
Do you?
I know you.
I don't think so.
Excuse us.
People ever tell you look like Superman?
No, I've never heard that before.
Huh.
Like I said, Mr. Wayne, people in Gotham need to learn.
You're
that-
Superman. Hey, will you please take a picture with us? Get one for me and Soup. I gotta get this on the gram. Thanks. My wife's a big fan. What do they call it when, there's a celebrity that your wife would have sex with? You're that guy.
Okay.
Say cheese.
Wait a minute. Put the phone back up for a second. You're Batman. I got Batman and Superman over here.
Look, I think you have me confused with somebody else.
Yeah, look at that.
Hey, f off.
Whoa, awesome.
I'm just having a conversation.
Oh, I didn't realize you were having a conversation. Hey, everybody, they're having a conversation. They don't want any regular people to bother them. I'll just leave you guys alone then. Thank you.
Anyway, as I was saying, I think the people of Metropolis need to learn that they can't trust an alien with the power to burn the entire civilization down.
Batman and Superman. They're having a fight.
Is that so?
I don't know what's going on.
Hey, I'll call you back.
Yo, what up, Periscope? It's your boy Jim. I'm here with Batman and Soup.
Shut your mouth or I'll throw you off this planet.
And I will rip your off.
Boys! Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. I love it. I love bringing people together.
Superman, Batman.
What? Batman? That's not Batman. He's in a nice suit. Batman wears a flowing cape. No, and this is not Superman has perfect vision, whereas this man's in glasses.
Yeah,
What?
look.
Oh my God. I feel like such an idiot. Of course it's him.
Yeah, I can see why you'd feel that way. It took me like 2 seconds to figure it out.
I spent my whole life trying to kill a journalist. Like, I'm so embarrassed. Carry on. I like your column.
Yeah. Hey, look at this. Batman. It's Batman.
It's true. I am Batman.
You're not Batman.
I'm Lego Batman.
Nobody cares about Lego Batman.
Sure. Ask your kids if they care. Tell me something. We're still vital.
Anyway, came as a warning. Stop, or I'll stop you.
We'll try.
Yo, could I get everyone's attention, please? First of all, give it up for the DJ who's been chopping it up all night. You know what I'm saying. And I want to welcome our special guests, Batman and Superman in the house. Hit it. You know the song. Yeah. Soldier boy up in this hole. Watch me crank it, watch me roll. Watch me crank it, soldier boy. There's Superman in hole. Mama, you.
Thank you.
Hey, mister, you okay? We're on Mars. You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, God.
Kimmel.
Are we the only ones up here?
Yeah?
Oh. So what do you do?
Besides grow poo potatoes? I mean, not much. But now that you're here, I was thinking maybe let's do a talk show. You could host it. I'll be your guest every night.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm gonna pass on that. But thanks, and congratulations on not winning the Oscar. I'm just gonna go over there and die alone. It's good to see you, though.
Hey, Jerry.
Art,
quickly,
far more, Yeah, far more entertaining to me than The Flash. Go ahead.
Well, actually, it was exactly like The Flash. That was actually written by a lot of studio executives who don't know how to write. They let the sketch go on too long.
Okay.
There were plenty of cameos, and they had to give whoever was a cameo in this movie something to do, so they gave him absolutely nothing to work with. And then you could just tell that every single actor in this did not want to be doing
Oh,
that.
I think they love doing that.
In order to sell tickets.
No, I think that Cavill.
It's all publicity, but it's all done to sell tickets. But you put them in an embarrassing situation. I know it was intended to be a funny sketch, but holy cow! After a while, it was like, oh, can you please stop this torture? Enough is enough, please.
You could have cut out half the middle of that and gotten to the Martian. I agree. But they're also playing off of Matt Damon always getting preempted off of Jimmy Kimmel's show, and the fact that
it would have worked better if Jimmy Kimmel did not play the obnoxious Bostonian instead of Matt Damon. He's a character actor. He knows how to act it, but they didn't give him that choice.
They were also playing off of this.
Oh, of course. Hey, what happened to Jerry? Hey,
I'm not Jerry. I'm not Jerry Vasilatos. I'm Clark Kent.
Oh, and there you are. Yes. Well, hey, Jerry, good to see you. Some guy was sitting in a chair a little while ago. So, Jerry, this was a pleasure. We got to do this again when Indiana Jones 5 comes out. Can you believe it's been 38 years and they're finally giving us another Indiana Jones movie?
And Indiana Jones dealing with the issue, the last great adventure, Art, age.
I kind of wonder, I mean, if The Flash affected me because of my mom issues, I wonder if Indiana Jones is going to, tug my heart because of dad issues. What do you think?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, there's an emotional look. The most effective movies are the most effective element part of a movie is resonance. If the characters of the situations can resonate with the audience, which means you can connect with what they're going through, that's what makes it an emotionally satisfying experience. Now, I get why the plotting and the story with the Flash and Barry saving his mother resonated with you. Thankfully, I have not lost my parents yet, so I'm sure maybe that would have those scenes. But again, those scenes worked in the Flash for me. I thought those were the quiet moments that I'm like, yeah, this is cool. It's just all the other goofy humor with the two berries and everything else. But Art, thank you for joining me for this special cinematic edition of Chicago Corner. And I hope all of you who tuned in, who've seen The Flash, we didn't spoil it for you. This is really meant to be a conversation about The Flash after you've seen the movie, whether you agree or not. Sorry, we don't have a live stream chat, but you can always add your comments below. And as always, if you want to support the show and more fine programming on Chicago Corner, you can support us on Patreon at chicagocornertv.com. Art, thank you for joining me. Art's a regular contributor to our live stream chats. Very good friend, very respected friend. I sometimes think that, I believe a lot of Art's familiarity with cinema history actually exceeds my own, even though I'm a longtime cinephile and media creative professional director, as is Art. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the program. Art, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely, Jerry.
Don't let me find you out here again.
We're trying to help you.
I don't need help.
Not my diagnosis. What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.